Okay, fess up. Who did it? Who wished on the Big Finish tree for a sequel to K9 and Company? Who did it? Make yourselves known. Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mr. TARDIS, and I was not expecting anything like this to come out of Big Finish Productions. A sequel series to the K9 and Company Doctor Who spin-off with Harry Sullivan. I love this idea conceptually, even though I never could have predicted we would be having anything like this. The brainchild of Mark Wright and Peter Angelides, we have Smith and Sullivan reunited, which takes place after the events of K9 and Company, the failed Doctor Who spin-off from the early 1980s starring Elizabeth Sladen and John Leeson, that also stars Harry Sullivan, and I'm chronologically confused as to what point in Harry Sullivan's life this is, because for those of you who don't know, Harry Sullivan has had a very interesting Doctor Who Big Finish journey. Voiced by Christopher Naylor in Big Finish, yes, Harry Sullivan was a companion of the Fourth Doctor in Season 12 of Doctor Who, but also he reunited with the Fourth Doctor, with unit employee Naomi Cross, but he also had adventures with the Seventh Doctor and Naomi later on in his life before getting dropped off back in the 1980s. So just where in this timeline we are for Harry, I've no idea. But anyway, John Leeson returns as the voice of K9, and we have Sadie Miller as Sarah Jane Smith, journalist in the 1980s after travelling with the Doctor. We have a trilogy of 1-hour stories. We have The Caller by Tim Foley, Union of the Snake by Roland Moore, and Blood Type by Simon Guerra. And with this being set in the 1980s, predominantly 1980s London, we're dealing with a time of technological change, with real futurism here. The Caller is about the phone lines, telecommunications in London in the 1980s. The government is attempting to sell off and privatise the telecommunications network to the highest bidder. However, in light of that, the government are also trying to cover up a series of murders that are happening in phone boxes around London. But Sarah Jane Smith is following the paper trail, she's following the money, and she's on the case. And she bumps into Harry Sullivan, who is also doing some work on the side for UNIT to investigate these murders. They decide that two heads are better than one, and also utilise their robot dog K9 to get to the bottom of these murders, and also investigate one of the companies bidding for the network, Starling Industries, which is led by Violet Starling, played by Rosie Baker.
You know, it really is remarkable.
It has a designation.
And what was that again?
K9, as clearly denoted on my exterior.
I don't think he likes me.
I could order him to like you.
Hardly seems sporting.
K9's been a loyal friend.
The Doctor didn't have anything to do with this, did he?
Well, I didn't pick him up from Battersea Dogs Home.
Ask a silly question. So, this is your billet, is it? Maybe we could stick the kettle on?
Studies through here. Lead the way, K9.
There's a good boy.
Designation boy mistaken. I am a fully autonomous AI-powered mechanical unit capable of independent thought and action.
Right you are. Wow, looks like an operations room.
The papers have somewhat outgrown the desk.
And spread all over the walls. I like your little kennel down here, K9.
It is not a kennel. It is a charging cradle.
My mistake. What are these marks on the map?
You don't know?
Should I? You mentioned deaths.
The marks indicate the locations of the phone box murders.
The Caller was a really strong opening story, and I think a big part of that is because Sadie Miller and Christopher Naylor have such genuinely warm chemistry with each other. Obviously, Elizabeth Sladen and Ian Marter are no longer with us, but there still feels like an authentic connection. This feels like an authentic reunion that has been years in the making. Some really lovely scenes early on when Sarah and Harry are catching up and reminiscing on their time with the Doctor, but we're also catching up with Sarah Jane, who is trying to make it work once again as a journalist, and she's finding it really difficult, and she's on hard times, and she's struggling to micromanage all these parts of her life, including her family relationships. We've got Aunt Lavinia here, played by Annette Badland, who has a small role in this episode, but she's absolutely brilliant. I love the coda that her character has at the end of the story as well. She is going to London because she's got her own affairs to catch up with. We have this strange killer alien voice in the phone lines that almost catches Harry at one point, and Sarah Sarah Jane butts heads with Violet Starling, and Rosie Baker is really good in this story as Violet, and I didn't know this until the behind-the-scenes making of for this story. Rosie is Colin Baker's daughter, which is a really fun connection. The Caller is a really strong opening pilot, re-establishing these relationships and establishing new ones. This is Harry's first encounter with K9, and why does K9 hate Harry so much? The passive aggression is off the charts, and it's so entertaining. And this leads into Union of the Snake by Roland Moore, the second story of this box set. It revolves around the self-made millionaire Eric Chen, who inexplicably went from working in a sawmill to designing revolutionary computer chips. Sarah Jane goes undercover as his personal assistant in order to investigate how he made his billions worth of fortune, with her assigning Harry Sullivan and K9 to reconnaissance duties with this mysterious warehouse outside of London. However, Eric Chen has a secret weapon up his sleeve, and he's made contact with an extraterrestrial robotic cybernetic giant snake who is getting rid of people who stand in his way.
Come on, it's Brass Monkeys waiting here. We did say 6 o'clock. What time do you make it, K9?
3 minutes past 6, my old muck-up.
Sorry?
Oh, great. I'm on time.
Well, you're... yes, on time.
Don't worry. I made sure I wasn't followed.
Lovely jubbly.
What did he say?
It's my fault. I told him to listen to how real people spoke. He started tuning into local TV, and this, sadly, is the result.
Oh, I see. Well, I need to get changed out of these things. Eric Chen wants me to go to an awards event with him tonight.
All right, then.
No, you can drive. So, how did you two get on with that collector?
Not much to tell, really. We found Medworth. He had that alien oscillator thing, but we lost it when he got vaporized.
It was proper nasty.
Just like the other collectors who wouldn't give their gadgets to Chen.
Yes, and it was the same robot snake that K9 had detected before. And just like in the other cases, it appeared out of thin air, stole what it needed, and vanished again.
How does it do it? Some sort of teleport?
Nah, I've not detected nothing like that, Treacle.
Before we dive into the main thrust of Union of the Snake, I think that Union of the Snake and The Caller are a really good double feature, and it reminds me of the Sarah Jane Adventures, where they go to great lengths to try and humanise the antagonists of these stories. Now, it's a little bit different in Smith and Sullivan Reunited, because it's the humans who get fleshed out and well characterised, whereas the actual alien threats, they're a little bit generic and simple in terms of motivation and in terms of dialogue and their behaviour. But in The Caller, Violet Starling is wanting to make this business endeavour work because she wants to live up to the legacy of her father. And in Union of the Snake, Eric Chen has some sort of Faustian bargain with this alien robotic snake because he's lost his son and wants to try and find him again. And I thought that it was a really nice through line with these two stories in Reunited, where it tries to prioritise saving the antagonists spiritually, not just in terms of saving the world. It's also a really nice showcase of Sarah Jane's abilities to sweet talk and try and infiltrate Chen's inner circle as his personal assistant, and how she's able to use her people skills to lull him into a false sense of security or open up about things that he otherwise wouldn't. The episode also has a surprisingly thrilling chase set piece around halfway through, and a really fun running joke when Harry is trying to teach K9 to speak normal, and he starts talking like Del Boy from Only Fools and Horses, like lovely jubbly, alright cocker, like it's it shouldn't be as funny as it is, but it's very funny. I will say my main complaint for Union of the Snake is that Eric Chen has a right-hand man, like his muscle, who is almost like comically one-minded. Things start going slightly off track or they deviate from the plan slightly, and his muscle is like, oh, let's just call in the snake and kill everyone. It's like, I don't know, I feel like you're missing a few steps here. It felt a bit forced. But apart from that, a really strong middle chapter to the box set, which leads us to part 3, Blood Type by Simon Guerrier. And structurally, this one deviates a lot from the first 2 episodes of the box set. It revolves around Sarah Jane Smith trying to meet all of these deadlines that she's given herself. She's running out of money, she hasn't been paid for a while because she hasn't submitted her manuscripts, and as a journalist and an investigator, she starts taking shortcuts. And to reflect that structurally, Blood Type is more like a montage story. It deals with multiple encounters with aliens, it deals with multiple articles and investigations that Sarah Jane Smith has to do, as she gets a newfangled piece of technology called the personal computer, which she starts using to type up her stories, and that just ends up making things even worse.
I investigate strange goings-on, and I pay for those investigations by selling stories about them.
Your logic is sound, mistress.
But I have to write them up without the strangest bits. No reference to aliens or robots or our trip to the ice canoes on Titan. Our friend, the hairdresser, is from outer space, but...
It is imperative that we do not reveal the presence of non-terrestrials.
I know. So, try to tell the truth without telling the whole story. That means I have to keep rewriting every sentence. It's hard enough to write an engaging, cogent version of what really happened without having to self-censor as I go. The worst thing is, now I've seen how it could be easier on one of those new word processing things, which I can't afford without finishing the writing, which is a nightmare on this item. Don't mind me. I just have to get it done. Can't let myself get distracted. Chance would be a fine thing. Sarah Jane Smith?
Sarah, old girl.
Harry, I'm working on my stories.
How many have you got done?
I have to get them right.
Oh dear, that bad.
There's an interesting moral centre to Blood Type, where Sarah Jane is wanting to, get paid and submit these stories and try and be authentic to the stories that she's trying to tell that reflects the people in the stories, but she also can't let on that they're aliens, and she also can't admit the whole truth, otherwise that would cause mass panic and chaos, and maybe no one would believe her and then she'd lose her job. So she's trying to tell the true stories from these encounters while omitting all the alien information, and trying to thread this needle is causing her to miss her deadlines and overwork herself, and she ends up losing control of all of her work. And I think that's really interesting. However, how it gets to that end point where the work starts almost literally turning on her, which is a really fascinating idea, and I can't really dive too deeply into it because of spoilers, I do think that Blood Type as an episode, it does end up wrapping these plot threads too neatly in a bow at the end. You've got these narrative strands, one of which is an alien refugee who is posing as a barber in London, and the alien says that he just wants to assimilate, he just wants to be left alone, and then Sarah Jane ends up writing a story about him, but omitting the whole alien part of his story. And then that story seems to conclude, and then we move on to Sarah Jane's journalistic career being sabotaged. But then the third act of Blood Type tries to bring back the barbershop, and it doesn't feel like it really coheres, and it feels like a really disjointed third act. I don't think this story naturally brings back the barbershop aspect of the story in order to fit in with the other stories that have been introduced. I think it makes some of the character work a bit incoherent, and it doesn't feel like it's really flowing like it should. There's an interesting connection to Union of the Snake in Blood Type as well. You've got this character called Veronica, played by Marcia Leckie, who is essentially an alien collector. She's just sort of finding all of these alien artifacts and alien weapons, and she doesn't know what they are. She's just collecting them, maybe to sell them or utilize them at some point. And I think that would be a really interesting character to have, or a character to return to as a source for where can you get this alien stuff, where can you maybe upgrade K9 or do these other things in this 1980s Earthbound setting. I think there's great utility to a character like that. And in Blood Type, her subplot of her starting a business with baby formula and supplements for pregnant women that turns out to have an alien source and that gets discovered, that is way more fascinating than anything else happening in Blood Type in my opinion, but that's like a 10-minute portion of the story. I like how that subplot challenges Sarah Jane morally. I just wish we kind of stuck to that one, because I really would have been interested to see what Sarah Jane and Harry would have done had we stuck to that story. What moral decisions would they have made? What choices could they have done? I think that should have been what Blood Type was about, but because we're trying to throw in all these multiple plot threads because we're trying to overwork Sarah Jane, it gets a bit lost in the shuffle, and I think that Blood Type sort of misses an opportunity there. I didn't dislike Blood Type, I just think it's a bit disjointed. But overall, Smith and Sullivan Reunited, I had a really good time with this. I don't want to call it fluff, because fluff feels like a derogatory term. It's cozy. It's really easygoing listening. You could have had this on TV in the early 1980s on like Sunday nights alongside All Creatures Great and Small. I think there is potential in future box sets to mine a conflict between Sarah Jane and Harry, where Harry basically has everything handed to him. He's got a really easygoing life because he's got this cushy unit payment package, whereas Sarah Jane is really trying to grind grind and make it work as a journalist in London, and I think there's a lot of potential there. Smith and Sullivan Reunited is a really solid template for future box sets moving forward. I had a really good time with it. Like I said, it's really easygoing and cozy, cushy listening. David Rucroft's score really emulates the early 1980s in the Metropolitan setting. But yeah, it's really fun. I had a good time with it. If you are someone who thinks that a series like K9 and Company really did not get the chance it deserved, then yeah, I recommend Smith and Sullivan Reunited. And I also think it is worthwhile to support the brilliant actors like Sadie Miller and Christopher Naylor. I think that they do a really terrific job fronting the box set. And I'm really looking forward to Series 15 of the Fourth Doctor Adventures, which comes out early next year, which does have Tom Baker, Sadie Miller and Christopher Naylor. We are back in Season 12 territory, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do with that dynamic. We've not actually had that many stories with Tom Baker and Sadie Miller, so yeah, I'm looking forward to having the Fourth Doctor and Sarah Jane back. That should be really great. But yeah, that's my review of Smith and Sullivan Reunited. I don't know who asked for it, but I'm glad they did. I had a really good time with it. So let me know what your thoughts are with the box set in the comment section below. Hit the like button, subscribe for more Doctor Who Big Finish reviews, and I'll see you all next time.